What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. This will be the first episode in our team review series. So we've already gone over the three teams that I had this season. If you want to check that out, I believe it was like a week ago we posted that. Every week moving forward, I'm going to do one of your teams. So remember to submit your team. It's ffateamreview@gmail.com. I will try to remember to put that in the description this time. And basically what we're going to do is I want you to send me your draft. So we've got right here, we've got a draft, your final team, so a screenshot of what your final roster looked like, the starters and the bench, and then tell me about trades. I kind of want to only do teams where trades were actually made, and then maybe tell me about some like free agent moves you did. I don't know. Just tell me any sort of information or what you want me to go over in general. So you'll kind of get a better understanding after watching this one, but I don't know. Just send whatever you want in these emails, and then if I like what you send, I'll post it. So this was actually the first person to send in an email, so I figured had to do that one. And a pretty good draft. So we're gonna go over, of course, the draft. We'll go over the team, and then I've got a few different things to go over in trades because he made a lot of different trades. And so starting off the draft, we see first 11 rounds wide receivers and running backs. And this was a staple of something that we were talking about in the offseason, just saying, I just want to be very, very confident in the running backs and wide receivers that I draft. Definitely, obviously, we're not taking defense and kicker until the last two rounds. He did that correctly. And then we waited a lot of times on quarterback and tight end if we didn't see a value early. Obviously, I don't know if you didn't see a value early, if you missed something, but this is what the team looks like right now. So one thing I want to note, and we will go over this at the end of the video as well, is in general last season, it was running back early. He started off, you have a top 3 pick, you're taking Zeke. That's just what the pick was at 3. It didn't work out because Dak got hurt, but it was the correct move. Like, obviously, when Dak was healthy, that was just the number 3 pick. Then he takes 2 wide receivers, and I don't think Godwin and Golladay were bad picks in a vacuum. I think they were good picks. But something that we kind of noticed when looking back, and something we did notice during the offseason, was this range right here for wide receivers. In rounds like 4, 5, 6, 7, there were a lot of really, really good wide receivers in that range. And so by taking Godwin and Golladay, you were pretty sure you were getting good players. Obviously, Golladay didn't end up working, but from a process standpoint, that was still a good pick. But what did it make you do? It made you take these running backs in 4, 5, 6 that we had a lot less confidence in. We still liked Kareem Hunt. I think that was a good pick. But we had less confidence in Melvin Gordon. I don't know 100% when this draft was. So I don't know if this was Leonard Fournette when he was on Tampa Bay or on the Jaguars. Obviously, it says Tampa Bay on the screen, but that could just be like what the final team was. Like, it might just be you took Leonard Fournette. He's now on Tampa Bay. It might have changed. I don't really know. But regardless, we weren't in love with Leonard Fournette. And then it made you go back to wide receiver after the good ones were gone. So you grab Parker, who was solid, Shepard, Anthony Miller, like, fine. But we really would have preferred if this group of receivers was a little bit up here, because then you're getting DK Metcalf, you're getting DJ Chark we liked, that didn't work out, but Terry McLaurin. There were a lot in that middle range that we were really, really in love with that you don't have access to a little bit later. So that's one thing. There were very few things this person did wrong. I think that was one that I would have liked to seen differently. I would have liked to seen, even if the running back didn't work out, maybe a running back at that second pick instead of Godwin. And then maybe even running back at 3 instead of Golladay, and then just hammer out a ton of awesome wide receivers because there was great value in those areas. But other than that, I think it's a really good draft. He takes Jimmy Garoppolo. I think that's a fine pick. The thinking behind Garoppolo last season, or I guess this season, last offseason, was basically he's been really efficient. He's been really good when they asked him to throw the ball. They just didn't ask him to throw the ball last season. It was basically they were just dominating on defense. They ran the ball. And we were saying, well, maybe their defense takes a step back this season because no one's ever like that elite year over year. Defense is not sticky. That did happen. They were not as good this season. And we said if that occurs, then maybe they're down more, and maybe when they have Kittle, they've got Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, like they've got awesome talent. Maybe if they have to throw the ball, this is going to be really, really good for Jimmy G. Unfortunately, their entire team gets injured for like a second consecutive season, and so they never really have that healthy skill player core all there in games where they were shooting out, so it didn't really work out. But you know what? It was a 14th round pick. It's worth a shot. And as you'll see, it didn't hurt him too much because he acquired a quarterback. And then tight end, I think Jonnu Smith, it's really tough to look back at tight end because there was like 3 good tight ends this season, but Jonnu Smith was a really, really good pick until he got hurt, and then he kind of trailed off towards the end of the season, but I still think Jonnu Smith in the 12th was like a good play from a process standpoint. But if you're listening on the audio, we'll go through the team here. So it's Zeke first, and then we've got, that's the 3rd overall pick. We've got Godwin and Golladay in rounds 2 and 3. Hammers out running back, going Melvin Gordon, Kareem Hunt, Leonard Fournette. Then he's got a good range of wide receivers, Parker, Shepard, and Anthony Miller. Goes back and grabs a handcuff in round 10. Note on handcuffs. In general, you guys know I don't like handcuffs, except when we know 100% certainty that it's going to be a running back 1 when our guy goes down, because we know that's the case with Zeke. When Zeke misses time, Tony Pollard's a running back 1. We know that when Dalvin Cook misses time, Alexander Madison is running back 1. And so when we know for sure, I'm comfortable taking handcuffs because you're just basically locking in every week a running back 1. Again, Dak gets hurt. You can't really predict that, but that would have been a great play, these 2 picks, if Dak stays healthy, which over time we can assume is going to happen more often than not. So that's a note on the pick there. I think it's a good pick. Goes with CeeDee Lamb. That was an exceptional pick. And then in the 12th round, Jonnu Smith. Alshon in the 13th. I don't love that one just because they spread the ball out so much in Philly that if I'm going to take one player, I would have preferred it be Jalen Reagor because at least he has some upside. Alshon, we knew he wasn't starting the season healthy, and even if he came back, the likelihood that he was good this season was pretty low. So I don't love that one, but there were very few things, again, that this guy did wrong. Garoppolo 14th, Chiefs defense 15th, and Joey Sly 16th. So that is the draft. Now we take a look at the roster. And you're looking at this and you're like, excuse me? Like, this doesn't even look remotely close. That's something you need to realize. When you're doing mock drafts in the summer, you got to realize that the majority of your team is probably not going to be on your team towards the end. You're going to have the staples, but other than the staples, on average, I think it's 50%. But a lot of teams are not going to have the majority of their players that they drafted. So the starting lineup to end the season: Tom Brady, Antonio Gibson, Aaron Jones, Chris Godwin, Devonta Adams, TJ Hawkinson, Mike Davis, the Bucks defense, and Will Lutz. And then if we go over to the bench, the only player I believe that was drafted is Tony Pollard. We have James Robinson, Alexander Madison, Pittman, Laviska, Kiki Cutie, Kirk Cousins, and then LaMichael Pirine on the IR. So, trades. How did we get to that point? 4 different trades this guy executed in weeks 1 through 4. Around week 2, traded away CeeDee Lamb and Devonta Parker for Antonio Gibson. That is an excellent trade. Antonio Gibson, we knew at some point this season was going to be the feature back. We kept saying that over and over and over again over the first month. He wasn't yet, but he was going to at some point. And so this person trades away CeeDee Lamb, had a really nice start to the season, trades away Devonta Parker, and gets that upgrade for Antonio Gibson. A nice 2-for-1 trade. Next trade, while Devonta Adams is injured, trades away Kareem Hunt. I do not know for sure, didn't say if this was when Chubb was also hurt. There was a little bit of crossover where Nick Chubb was injured and Adams was injured. I think it was maybe 1 or 2 weeks. It could have been during that time, but regardless, he did say Adams was out, and so the person was looking at Adams. He had a really big game, then he gets injured. I believe it was a hamstring, right? And so we were having a little bit of concern over that, or at least some people had concern over that. And so maybe this person was saying, hey, I'm going to take Kareem Hunt, I'm going to take Melvin Gordon, I will give you Adams. That is an exceptional trade, getting Adams there. Another 2-for-1. Around week 8, trades away Leonard Fournette, Sterling Shepard, and Jonnu Smith, all to get TJ Hawkinson. Doesn't get like a massive upgrade here, But this is something that we always look at and applaud. Leonard Fournette wasn't using him. Sterling Shepard wasn't using him. Jonnu Smith. Well, now we're upgrading Smith to Hawkinson. And so even if it looks like he's trading away a ton just to get one player, it was two players they're not using plus the player they're upgrading. So even to get this small upgrade, that's a smart trade. Because you know what? You're also getting free agency. You're saying, okay, now I actually have two players, my favorite free agents, that I can go after here. So it's not just Hawkinson, it's Hawkinson plus two roster spots. So an exceptional trade there. And then a home run trade, trading away in week 13, right before the trade deadline, or right before week 13. Trades away Zeke, Kenny Golladay, and then Zach Moss, who we picked up off free agency to acquire Aaron Jones. 2 for 1, 2 for 1, 3 for 1, 3 for 1. Those, we just preach this every single week. Those are the trades you want to be doing. You want to be getting the one really good player and trading away depth. That's why if we look back at his team, a lot of these players busted, but did it matter? And this is why we're taking all this depth. You're saying, well, why do you need, your fifth wide receiver before your tight end? Well, because when we get to trading, we can start trading away some of these guys to acquire more talent. But if you don't have good enough players to trade away, or you don't have enough players in your bench to trade away, it's much more difficult to pull off trades like this. If we go to free agency, his best free agent additions, obviously there were other ones. Grabbed Tom Brady off free agency, James Robinson, I'm sure that was in like week 1, and then Mike Davis once McCaffrey got injured. So obviously those helped out the team as well. Unfortunately, grabs the number 2 seed going into the playoffs and then has a first round loss because Godwin has 2 for 25 and no touchdowns. Brady has under 200 passing yards, just the 2 touchdowns. So I think he said he had 7th place overall. But here's the thing. I mean, looking at that team, if we bring up the starting lineup again, this team makes it to the championship far more often than it has a first round exit. Obviously, it's unfortunate that the Bucs, didn't have a great game through the air in week 14, but you got to look at this lineup and say you didn't do anything wrong. You took a bunch of depth in your draft. You turned that draft and that depth into a really, really solid team top to bottom. And so I think this is a really good team and just exceptional trades throughout the season. To go over, we looked at the draft. Drafted wide receiver or running back in the first 11 rounds. The tight end was in the 12th round, quarterback 14th. Another wide receiver, remember, was Alshon in the 13th, and then defense kicker in the last round. During the season, traded away or dropped 12 of their first 14 picks. So this goes back to when we're trying to examine mock drafts in the offseason. We're trying to examine what we did. And we're trying to plan our drafts next year for the season. Do not look at your draft if you're mock drafting for 2021. Don't look at that and say, well, here's my lineup, and then, okay. One thing I want to mention here. When we're looking at buys, we're like, oh no, I drafted a team that has 5 players who have a week 9 buy. Do you think this person cared? Because they dropped 12 of their first 14 picks. Not dropped, but dropped or traded away. Do not make a draft decision based off of when people are on bye. Because like I always say, you don't know what your team's going to look like. Maybe all of those players won't even be on your team towards the end. Only draft the players you want to draft. Do not even use it as a tiebreaker. But on top of that, he dropped 12 of 14. So when you're looking at your team, you can't say, well, I have these 2 running backs locked in. I've got a backup. Okay, now I'm set to go on to other positions. You have no idea that Dak is going to get hurt early in the season, that Kenny Golladay is going to get injured and then basically hold out for the remainder of the season, that they're going to use Phillip Lindsay a lot, and so that Melvin Gordon pick isn't going to be all that great. You don't know these things are going to happen when you're in the draft, so you've got to game plan. You've got to say, okay, what happens if I lose my first 2 picks? Can I get enough depth to still make up for that? And I think this person did a very, very good job at that. And so I think this season was a win, even though the result wasn't there. One thing I want to do also is this team kind of shows the incredible importance of trading. 2-for-1s, 3-for-1s, 4-for-1s. If we look at this lineup and you don't do any trades, you just try to build through free agency, this is not a championship team. I mean, who the heck? You're starting Godwin every week. You'd be starting Godwin and Parker, but Parker was very up and down. Shepard had a nice, week 17, but most of the season he did nothing. You definitely would have dropped Anthony Miller. You could only rely on Pollard in a few weeks when Zeke was injured, and then Zeke was less effective in a lot of weeks after Dak went down. And so you look at the roster here, and you're like, I can't really feel the team that's going to consistently be getting 130 points, kind of what we're looking for towards the end. Depends on the scoring format. But in that 120, 130 range for a championship team, this team, as it is out of the draft, isn't going to get there. But since we know our team is going to be different after the draft, you've got a game plan for that, and you've got to build enough depth. 3 final thoughts, though, and then we will get out of here. 1, would have been fine taking quarterback and a tight end early. So if we go back to the draft, doesn't even really matter where we put it in. If we said, okay, Kelce in round 2, Kelce in round 3, I mean, it depends on where it got taken. I guess it's typically round 2 last season, but Kelce, Kittle, if we'd have gone Mahomes there, if we'd have just grabbed one of these top-end quarterbacks or tight ends, it would have been fine. There was enough depth here. There were enough good moves to where if we'd spent a really early pick on Kelce or Kittle, I mean, Kittle gets injured, but process. It's all we're looking at is process. If we grab an elite tight end in round 2, 3, or an elite quarterback or both, this team ends up being much stronger. And so I'm not saying you had to have done that. I'm saying moving forward to next season, I'm pretty darn sure Kelce's going to be a top 10 pick, but definitely a first-round pick. I'm pretty sure Kittle's going to be early second round. These guys, these quarterbacks are going to start going really early. And that's something, important that we're going to have to go over in the offseason is when do we take these quarterbacks? Because, tight end, we're really going to be targeting Kelce, Kittle, Waller in this first and second round, really, because of the advantage they get and because of how good we are at drafting and trading. We can make up for it in other areas. But what about quarterback? We look at Tom Brady this season. Dude has, 40 passing touchdowns and 3 rushing touchdowns, and he was barely a quarterback 1 in points per game. You got to be mobile. And so we're looking at it, and there's probably in that 8 to 10 quarterback range where we want Mahomes, Lamar, Aaron Rodgers. I would throw into there. I'm not saying that you need to be 1,000-yard rusher. I'm just saying Aaron Rodgers can add something with his legs. You just got to add something. He can't be taking a 0, be like Drew Brees with negative rushing yards on the season. But guys like that, like Dak, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts now, it's going to be so important to just make sure you got one of those guys, because we talk about streaming all the time, but we're getting to the point right now that so many mobile quarterbacks have been thrown in to where some of these guys are averaging in the mid-20s. Again, it depends on scoring system, but low to mid-20s in points per game. Well, you can no longer really get that streaming. In the past, you could stream different quarterbacks. I can get 17, 18 points streaming. That's great and all, but when you're going up against Josh Allen, who drops 35 on you, even if you're streaming and you hit on someone who gets 17, that's a massive advantage for the other team. And so since there's 8 to 10 of them, it doesn't mean that you need to draft Mahomes in the 3rd round. It just means maybe we can't wait anymore going forward for the very end of the draft, because this may have been the last season where that was viable. There were still options late this season. There was obviously Hurts at the end of the season, went off, so you didn't even need to draft someone there. But going forward, it's very unlikely that you're going to be able to stream Baker Mayfield, Phillip Rivers, these quarterbacks that can get it done different weeks but aren't consistently getting there and don't have the same ceiling as some of these mobile quarterbacks. Going forward, it really seems like you're going to have to draft one of these mobile quarterbacks. Where they go, I don't know. It's probably going to fall in that round 2 to 6 range, but we might need to spend a pick at quarterback this coming season in that range. But again, looking at this team, that's fine. Take any of these first like 2 through 6, 7, replace it with a quarterback that we feel good about. I mean, do you really care that much? No. And I think that's something we need to consider. We're good enough at drafting, good enough at free agency and trading to where we can definitely afford to take tight end and quarterback a little bit earlier than we're used to because we have so much depth later. And then also look at the later rounds. I mean, you open up a 12th round flyer and a 14th round flyer. Well, we really liked a lot of these rookie wide receivers this season. There were some running backs we really liked that hit. And so it's fine maybe spending a later pick on those. But I think that is going to do it. Oh, and then I just said the areas to attack. Remember I talked about it was pretty clear last season that this mid-range for wide receiver was optimal. Rounds like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We really want to just hammer wide receiver. And so I think in the early rounds, you want to set yourself up for that. And so grabbing the 2 wide receivers when the next rounds are where the real value was there, it hurts you because then you have to kind of go back to running back and you're missing out on great value. And so I think just a better understanding of where is the value at different positions in drafts and kind of planning accordingly to get yourself to that value. But again, if you guys want to send your team in every week, I'm going to be going over a team, over their trades, their free agent moves, and just talking about this upcoming season, what it means for what these players did. We're going to go over championship teams, teams that missed the playoffs. Again, this team, second round ranking, I guess, going to the playoffs, second seed, and then ended up losing in the first round. But we'll go over a bunch of different teams, and it's ffateamreview@gmail.com, and I will put it in the description this time. So that's the end of this one. Hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, then how about hitting that like button, and how about subscribing to the channel if you're new? Thanks for watching.